Stop right now if you haven't thought about who's going to listen to your music. Streams, listeners, saves, followers. Spotify uses these engagement metrics to determine the success of your song, and in turn, to determine whether Spotify is going to show your song to more people through one of their algorithmic pushes. But these metrics won't be right if you're not showing your music to the right people. That's why choosing the right audience is so important when you're using digital marketing tools like Facebook ads to promote your music. And that's why we're spending today talking about audiences. What's up everyone? My name is Kyle and I'm the founder of Kyle the Ally. I consult for musicians to help them use digital marketing tools such as Facebook ads to promote their music on Spotify or to help them sell tickets when they go on tour. I've been helping artists professionally for almost 3 years, and one of the most consistent struggles I see they have is choosing audiences when they go to use digital marketing tools. It's hard to overstate the importance of getting your audience right when you're marketing your music. I find all the time my clients are approaching me telling me how happy they are with the high save rates they get on their songs or the high incidence of people adding their songs to personal playlists on Spotify. But this only works because we spend a lot of time thinking about the audience and we're putting the song and putting their ads in front of the people who are most likely to enjoy that song. In that case, success becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the beauty of Facebook ads is you have that power to target the people who are most likely to enjoy what it is you're putting out there. It's just like Einstein once said, everybody's a genius, but you can't judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, just like you can't judge Tiesto by how well he shreds a guitar solo. He didn't actually say that. I created this thought process to help my clients think about audiences when we're setting up an ad campaign together to promote their music. And I'm going to share with you the exact same thought process that we would use if you hired me to do the same thing. And to support my explanation, I'll be using my own song, Optical Tango is a Dance for Two, as an example, and walking you through the thought process that I used to create the targeting for that song. The first thing you need to understand about how we're going to set up these audiences is that one audience equals one ad set in the campaign, and each ad set is segmented by some kind of music interest, or interest in general. They're not always music, which we'll get to later. I'll pull up the example that I created for Optical Tango, just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. You can see there are different ad sets, and each one of them targets a different music interest, but what's critical is that the geography choice, so where on the world we're showing these ads, and also the age range and a bunch of the other parameters are all common among all of these ad sets. The way we're splitting them off is the music interest. Now that you know that, the first real step of this thought process is to ideate. You want to sit down and just start brainstorming a list of music interests that you could possibly use for targeting your ads. And you want to start generally by just choosing genres that loosely classify your music. In this case, I identified pop punk and emo rock as genres that classify this song. And then you want to complete the list with a whole bunch of artists who are making music in this sphere, and think about artists who have fans who could potentially like your music, okay? That's the important thing. You're not thinking about artists that you sound like, because music is original and we like to think we don't copy anybody. Think of artists whose fans may like your music. And there's a couple ways you can brainstorm these ideas. So think about who inspired the song first of all. In my case, Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco were two really big inspirations for this song. So right away, they're going to go up there on that list. Another idea is to show your song to somebody who's never heard your music before. Could be a friend or somebody you work with, or somebody who knows you, and ask them, what does this song remind you of? Most consistently, when I show my music to somebody who's never heard it before, they compare my music to Weezer. I think it's kind of annoying, it's cringy. I have nothing against Weezer personally, but I just kind of roll my eyes when I get this comparison. But it turns out that fans of Weezer have historically been a really good audience to market my music to, so I always include it with all of my new songs. Also think about what kind of artists are making music in this genre that are really hot right now, like Machine Gun Kelly, for example, just released a whole bunch of punk music since the last couple of years. So he made it onto my list. And then add a couple more artists that you personally enjoy. At this point, your list should be somewhere around 10 items long, or maybe a little bit longer. The second step of this process is to downselect, because as it turns out, Facebook won't know, or they won't have available all of the artists and interests that you've identified on your list. They won't be available for targeting your ads. So the way you can check this is run down that list you just generated and type in your ideas into the detailed targeting box when you're going to set up an ad set. There's a couple ways you could do this in Facebook Ads Manager, but I find this to be the most expedient way to do it. So you go to detailed targeting, and right off the top of my list, I had something like Panic at the Disco. So let's type that in. And I know Panic at the Disco is going to come up because that's a really big band, has been around for like 20 something years. And so that one comes up easily, not a problem. Inevitably, you might have 1 or 2 or even 10 of your ideas are not searchable in Facebook ads. So for example, if I wanted to search up a band called The Subways, which is a lesser known punk band, but they're a big inspiration of my music as well. So if I type in The Subways, for example, they don't come up. We see some other, interests that it suggests, but we can see that none of them are actually the music band The Subways. So we don't want to use those. Same if you wanted to look up a band called, like Picture Us Tiny. They won't come up, and that's just part of the game. You have to expect that at least some of the ideas that you've generated won't be targetable. And once you figure out which ones you can't target, strike those off the list and then keep the ones that are remaining. Step number 3 is to organize your ideas into groups, or I like to call them buckets. The whole idea behind this is you want to take the interests or the artists that are most similar and put them together into one group so you avoid competition between your various groups. And that's something that helps Ads Manager optimize among your ad sets so your ad sets aren't competing with each other for the same audience members. So you're going to return to the list that you generated. Now that you've down selected the options that are no longer available, you might be left with something that looks kind of like this. So how do we go about organizing this into groups? So right off the bat, anything that is a genre, so for example, pop punk should stand alone in its own bucket. Because generally genres are just really wide and general audiences, and they might already include, several tens of millions of people in them. So pop punk and emo rock, we're going to split off into their own groups right away. Now you get into the artists on your list, and you want to group together the artists by which ones are most similar. So for example, Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy should absolutely be in the same bucket because fans of one band are very likely to be fans of the other band. As a matter of fact, they have a lot of overlap. They've appeared on songs together, they've appeared on tour together. A good mental check is if you can imagine these artists playing a bill together at a live show, they should probably go in the same bucket. So we're going to take Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy, and I would even say My Chemical Romance can all go into one bucket because they're all that kind of mid-2000s like emo pop punk genre. Weezer is not super related to any of the ones on this list, but in this case, Weezer's also a pretty well-known artist, so that might make sense to put on its own. Machine Gun Kelly, I would say, doesn't relate to any of the others. Paramore and Fun should definitely be separate because they're pretty divergent interests, and exactly where you draw the line between what's similar and what's not similar is kind of subjective. And now that we have a couple of artists that are standing alone, we want to get to audiences that are roughly similar in size, somewhere on the order of 10 to 100 million people. So to supplement the artists that are now standing on their own, let's start with Machine Gun Kelly. So who can we add to his bucket? So I know Machine Gun Kelly has done a lot of collaborations with Travis Barker recently, so I'm going to add him as well as Halsey. And because I've already done this exercise, I know that Travis Barker and Halsey both come up in the Facebook targeting, so I can add them right there. Of course, if you're doing this for the first time, you'll have to go back and check them and repeat the whole down selecting process. But knowing that an artist has done collaborations with another artist recently is good material to put them together. For Paramore, let's add Avril Lavigne. That's another girl power pop punk artist from around the same era. And then Fun, we can add artists like, let's say, Franz Ferdinand or The Killers. And for Weezer, I'm honestly just going to leave that one on its own because I've used that one on its own in the past and had a lot of success with it. So this is just a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But now you can see that the artists are starting to sort themselves into buckets. If you're struggling to expand on the ideas that you already have to fill up some of your buckets, a great way to approach this is to use Spotify as a tool to help you. So you can see, for example, I pulled up Fall Out Boy, and we can scroll down to their fans also like section and see what other artists are fans of Fall Out Boy listening to. In this case, we have Panic at the Disco, My Chemical Romance, All Time Low. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, this might have been exactly what I did when I originally set up this audience for my song, as I probably just pulled up the fans also like and chose from here. And this is a solid way to expand on your ideas when you already have just a handful to work with. Once you have these buckets nicely formatted, step number 4 is to stretch just a little bit your notion of what audience you're targeting. So these are kind of the core groups that I'm pretty confident would like my music. Actually, when I'm looking at it, this last group with Fun and The Killers might be already a little bit of a stretch, but that's okay, because like I said, we're not looking for the artists that sound like me or the artists that I sound like. We're looking for artists who might have fans who like my music. And people don't just listen to one artist or one genre of music usually. So it's not a crazy stretch to think that fans of Fun might also like my music. Maybe they like my vocal style or my instruments. So it's good to experiment a little bit and just step outside the box a tiny bit. Another way that you could do this is to use interests that are not necessarily artists. You could think of music festivals. For example, I might use the Warped Tour because that was a really popular tour that promoted this type of music. I could think about Rock am Ring. It's a big music festival, rock music festival in Germany. Think about ideas like that. And you can even think about non-music interests. For example, I have a client who once approached me and said, I really enjoy snowboarding. The people who listen to my music also enjoy snowboarding. So we made an audience, an ad set, a bucket basically, that targeted fans of snowboarding, skiing, and skateboarding. It has nothing to do with music, but I find that sometimes this is a successful audience for this artist, and so we always include it when I'm promoting one of this artist's projects. And that's exactly the kind of things you should be thinking about when you're thinking about stretching your audience choices just a little bit. And of course, the last step of this process is to actually implement your buckets as audiences within your ad sets. So I'm back in the ads manager, and you can see we're in the setup process for an ad set. And like I said before, all of the locations and all of the age ranges that you'll use will be the same across all of your ad sets, but this isn't necessarily what I would use for an ad set. I'm going to cover location and age range in a separate video just because I don't want to muddy the point that I'm making in this video already. And for today, we're just going to focus on the detailed targeting section, okay? Everything that we've spoken about today focuses on the detailed targeting part. So you're going to start not with the ideas that you generated, but you're going to start by typing in Spotify. So you want to target people who have Spotify, the app, or they're interested in, whatever. That's where we're going to start. And then you're going to click Define Further, and we're going to specify another criterion that this audience must also match. So an important difference here is that the way we've bound Spotify in the second field is with a logical and statement. So that means to be included in our audience, somebody has to meet condition 1 and condition 2. So for example, let's pull from the top of my list. So we'll use the Panic at the Disco bucket. So they have to be fans of Spotify and Panic at the Disco. So that one comes up, so we can click enter. And that's how this is set up. So Spotify and Panic are bound with a logical and statement. But if you keep typing in the same box, all of the things that you've entered in the same field are bound with a logical or statement. So an audience member will be included in this audience if they match condition A or condition B. So inside the same field is where you're going to type all of the interests that you've generated in that same bucket. So in this case, this bucket included Panic at the Disco. It's going to include Fall Out Boy. We're going to add that one as well. It's going to include My Chemical Romance. In the example I walked you through, those are the 3 that I had in there. I think the real audience I used had 1 more. But now you can see Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, and Panic at the Disco are bound with a logical OR statement. An audience member has to meet at least one of them, not necessarily all of them, just one of them, to be included. And they must also match Spotify. So that's the difference between logical and logical OR. And that's why I organize the audience in this way when I'm going to set it up. Now that we've walked through the entire thought process, I'm going to pull up the example from my own song one more time. Now that you have context, it should make a lot more sense why these artists and interests are organized in the way that they are. If you've made it this far in the video, I'd like to cordially invite you to like the video and subscribe to my channel so you can follow all of the content I'm going to be publishing. It's just a small gesture, but it would help me a lot, especially as a new channel trying to grow. Thank you guys. If you're interested in hiring me to help you with your next music promotion project, whether that be promoting a digital release on Spotify or selling tickets to an in-person show, you can go to my website, kyletheally.com. I'll put the link in the description below. Fill out the contact me form on my website, and if working together looks like a good fit, I'll get back to you with next steps via email. What is the most interesting audience you've ever used to promote your own music? Let me know in a comment down below, because I love hearing your guys' ideas. Thanks so much for joining me for this tutorial today. If you found it helpful, be sure to like the video and subscribe so you can be here for the next one. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.